paranormal. It surrounds us. It's everywhere. Tonight, you will hear from the people who live and work within these highly active locations, all in the efforts to discover America's most haunted. With your host, ghost hunter and author, Dan Terry.
Good evening, boys and ghouls. I'm Dan, your ghost host with the most haunted, and we are once again going across the ocean. I think this is my third trip to England just to talk to these folks, but God knows they've been way ahead of us on this stuff. My guest, Jane Rowley, and you are going to really enjoy this one. She's a spiritualist medium. She is a paranormal investigator. I think she said for 15 years. She works as the resident medium at the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Center over in the UK. We got to talk about haunted antiques, you know that. And she's currently studying full-time for a master's degree in Magic and Occult Sciences at Exeter University. So, and she was just telling me there's a lot of Americans paying to be there to take the same degree. She's there getting it. It's going to be really interesting. So let's just go right on and bring up Jane Rowley.
Hi, hello.
Jane, I'm glad you could make it. This is really exciting for me. Got to start with asking you about this degree in occult sciences. What are you looking into?
Oh, all sorts of things. It's been a fantastic opportunity for me because I've wanted to do a course like this for many, many years. And working in the paranormal, there was never really anything that sparked my interest. And as soon as this degree came up, as soon as I seen it, I applied for it on the same day. And I got my reply, and I'd already got my acceptance by sort of last September. Uh-huh. So I've had to sort of wait a year to actually sort of start doing the course. And now I'm on the course. It's just so exciting. It's just absolutely brilliant. My timetable, it covers Western dragons, philosophizing in magic, esotericism and magical tradition, magic and rituals, monsters of the Bible, and apparitions and atmospheres. So it's just amazing. It's just so exciting.
So when I'm thinking of occult sciences, I'm thinking of the zodiac, the turning lead into gold, things like that. What are they getting into exactly? You said apparitions is one. How about witchcraft?
Yeah, there's a lot of witchcraft. When you're talking about alchemy, we do cover things in alchemy. There's a lot of things on witchcraft. One of the things that I'm going to be looking at is actually witch marks, I think what my dissertation is going to be about. The witch marks on the old buildings around the doorways and over fireplaces, that sort of thing. And there's a local priory, an old priory that's still there with some of these marks on. So I'm hopefully looking forward to sort of cataloguing all these sort of signs and symbols and having a good look at them in depth. It covers everything. Philosophizing magic, we're looking at Greeks and Romans and what they were all up to. And, they were even doing sort of Asclepius. He was sort of summoning people in the temple of Isis, through seances with the priests and stuff. So this stuff's been around for thousands of years, and it's just fascinating to be able to look back and see all these different things.
Will you be getting into the Egyptians and some of their magic backgrounds?
Yeah. It's it sort of covers all that, and of course you can look at as much stuff as you want to. I'm finding with the other students that we get one topic and we look at that, and because we're all sort of really into this stuff, we want to do this and we want to do that and we want to look at this and we want to look at that. And even though it's not necessarily in the curriculum as such, we're finding that we just want to look at anything and everything to do with all these topics.
Mm-hmm. It just seems so exciting. I wish I could be there for it.
Yeah, the group of people that are on the course, they're just absolutely amazing. And as I was saying to you earlier, that probably more than half of the people on the course are Americans, and everybody brings a different twist, sort of from the paranormal. There's one of the guys, Jeff. He's really into astronomy, so he's sort of looking at everything from that sort of point of view. There's a girl that does plant magic. There's all sorts of different people bringing so many different things to the mix, and it's just so it just broadens your knowledge on so many different things, and a lot of things you probably didn't think about.
Mm-hmm. You undoubtedly brought in the idea that you've been a medium since childhood. You've seen, I'm guessing you've seen these spirits since childhood.
Yeah, I have.
I've talked to a lot of people who had that. This is not a power I would want. Is it under control, or do you see these people often?
Well, when I was little, one of my most memorable things was this sort of like little creature thing used to come out of the wardrobe and sit on the end of my bed and pinch my feet and really make me cry. I used to be under the blankets, under the duvet, sort of crying and just asking it to just keep leaving me alone, and this happened. This went on for quite a while, and that's always stuck with me. And even now, as a grown adult, I can't sleep with any wardrobe doors or drawers open or anything like that. I have to just go around and just check everything's all closed. And that was sort of one of my earliest experiences. But I did see, I saw a ghost in my grandma and granddad's house when I was about 9. I saw I've saw lots of different things over the time. And as you get older, you just learn to sort of push it to the back, because not everybody wants to know. You can't really tell a lot of people. And even sort of with your parents, you try and tell them these things, and they say, "Oh, you were dreaming. Oh, it's just your imagination." And so you sort of push it all to the back, and you don't discuss it with anybody, because it's the sort of thing that you just can't discuss with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. A good friend of mine that I ghost hunt with a lot, he was sensitive, and his family actually put him into an asylum because he kept seeing people that they couldn't see. And rather than try to question him about it, they just put him away for psychiatric treatment.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until years later he found out his mom was seeing it too. She just didn't want to tell his dad. She didn't want to be put in there with him. So, and it's a shame, because he's very good. He's been, a major part of my ghost hunting in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Because he can send me on the right direction when I'm talking to a spirit. So I hate to hear that, and that you had to push it back rather than live it.
Yeah. Well, I think when you go sort of going through high school and you're doing sort of exams and you're out with all your mates, and, you sort of, I suppose, experiencing different things in your life, it's not something that, like I said, you couldn't really discuss it with all your friends and stuff. Otherwise, you just, people would just take the mickey out of you. And it wasn't until later on, when I had kids, when my kids were grown up, it wasn't until then that I actually really started with the mediumship, because they came to me. It was almost, it's like an inner calling, and they almost sort of compelled me to do it. And I had all the voices in my head, and they weren't going to stop until I actually did something about it, because that was my time to start. And I did start, and I've not looked back.
My friend Tim, I was telling you about, called me up about 2 years ago. He had went into a Walmart store, and he said he'd never been in that one before. And he said there was a man in one of the aisles, very tall, described what he was wearing, but he was soaking wet. And everybody just walked like he wasn't there. And then this guy looked at him, realized Tim could see him, and ran towards him screaming. And nobody else knew this, but Tim told his wife, "I have to get out of the store. I got to go." And he walked out, said this spirit followed him to the door, cursing and screaming at him. Have you had any experiences like that?
Oh, when we've been on paranormal investigations in different locations, I have had, the sort of spirits sort of there screaming and shouting at you and telling you to get out and stuff like that. And one of the things that I do that I started to do when we started to work up at the centre is I actually started to try and draw the things that I was seeing, so the other team members could actually see what I was seeing, so they knew what they were working with. And that's something that I've tried to do ever since. And I have got a little book. I've not got it with me because it's back at home. I am actually in my student digs at the minute.
Oh, okay.
So I have actually got this book that I sort of collect all my drawings in, and where I've sort of tried to record a lot of things that I've seen. But I have come across some quite nasty characters. There's in the centre at the top of the stairs, there's two men that were always there, really quite nasty, quite he reminded me a little bit of the Bill Sykes character out of Oliver Twist.
Yeah,
and he was very much like that, and he had an accomplice with him, and it has been captured by other people as well. Somebody's actually caught to photograph him at the top of the stairs, and also a little boy came up to the centre, and he said that he'd seen a monster on the stairs, and I asked him to draw this monster in my book, and it was more or less like a stick man with a bowler hat, and it was more or less exactly what I'd drawn. It was very much like what I'd drawn in my book.
But the child saw it as a monster because of his attitude, I suppose.
Yeah, and the way he looked at him, and so the little boy seen him on the stairs. Okay. So he drew him as he saw him, and he will he recorded him, and as soon as he drew him I knew who he was referring to.
When you talked about the thing that would sit on your bed and pinch you, it brought to mind, I started ghost hunting back in 79. I started this a long time ago, and it wasn't until maybe 10 years ago I even heard the term elemental. But apparently that's a much bigger thing in Europe. Is that what you think you were seeing there?
I mean, to me, elementals are more of the fae folk.
Yes.
That's how I see them. But since we've been up at the centre, I feel that this is what I would call a spiritual creature. I don't feel that they're sort of part of the fae realm. And while we've been up at the centre, I have seen quite a few creatures up there. And the first one that we saw was actually let out of a bottle. Somebody brought it into the centre in a bottle, and it was let out of the bottle. And I knew that somebody had let it out. We were actually doing an investigation in there. We had some guests in doing an investigation, and people were saying about things like, felt like something were crawling up their legs and scratching their legs. And so I could actually see this creature. How I work is I send my energy out, and once my energy connects with the energy of the spirit or the entity, I can then see it. Okay. And I could then see this creature, and I've drawn it again in my book, but I've come across quite a lot of these creatures, all various different forms, and they look quite different. And I have actually drew a lot of them as well. So I would put this thing that was at the end of my bed actually in this category of creatures, and it's quite a scary thought actually.
Yeah.
Now when I look back as an adult, I thought it was quite a scary. Well, it absolutely terrified me at the time.
So this thing, when you talk elementals, you're talking about the fairies, but what about things like goblins, leprechauns, whatever other creatures like that, even getting into the cryptids? Do they fall under that category, or is this totally different?
I put all things like the pixies and the goblins and things all in the fae realm.
Okay.
And the elementals, to me, I like the water, the earth spirits, fire spirits. Mm-hmm. So they're the tree spirits and things like that. So that's what I sort of regard as in the fae realm. Things like the cryptids, I think they're in a category of their own. Okay. And I would be fascinated to work more on cryptids. I mean, things like Bigfoot, UFOs, everything like that, they all absolutely fascinate me. And if I can get, if anything happens, I would be straight at, trying to find a book or trying to find some sort of information about whatever's going on. And I think it's really quite important to actually try and read up and do research and try and find out as much as you can without just assuming everything's just, as it is.
Right. So cryptids would not be the spiritual creatures that this thing, you believe, was?
No.
Is it going to fall under demonics then, or is there another category you think that we're missing?
Well, to me, demonics are probably mean a bit different from what other people do. And as part of our team, we have been running for quite a while a program called the Demon Connections. And this is, people can see this on my friend who I work with, my colleague Neil Packer. He actually owns he owns the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre.
Okay.
But he also owns Ghost Planet Network, which is something that people can access. It's on Roku or other devices, and you can actually watch a lot of paranormal content on there. So we've been running this program called Demon Connections. And I first thought about this when we were all in lockdown. And I was doing a lot of reading about the demons and everything else. And something didn't quite sit right with me. And there seemed to be a lot of contradiction and a lot of conflict in some of the information. So I suggested to Neil that we did this program called the Demon Connections. And I would summon the demon and we would then work with him. So this is the 72 demons in the Lesser Solomon. So the plan is that we summon the demon, we work with it, and then we actually make up our own conclusions rather than being just believing the continual narrative from the church or religious people that demons are real and demons are evil and nasty and everything else. So that's what we've been doing, and we've done over 30 demons so far. And my conclusion so far is that these demons are just really ancient beings, and they're not sort of here to possess us and harm us and everything else. So that's the conclusion that we've come to so far.
And that is an extremely interesting conclusion and very much against the norm.
Yeah, well, I think I just got a bit fed up with being told for the, sort of last 400 or 500 years that this is what demons are, this is all they do and everything. And nobody seems to have questioned that. We just seem to be blindly believing all this. And part of what I like to do is actually challenge everything. I would challenge everything that people come at, that people raise in the paranormal, things like residual energy. I don't believe in residual energy at all. I don't believe it exists. And that's based on my own experiences and my own, the knowledge and the information that I have. So, Ouija boards, I don't believe, I work very well with Ouija boards, but I don't believe in shutting them down, opening, closing them, all that sort of stuff. I don't believe in protection. We never use any protection whatsoever. And it's just a case of challenging all the norms. The good thing about having the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre is that we can do whatever we want in there. We can do whatever experiments we want. We can challenge anything and everything. And we can, we're not restricted. When you go on an investigation, you're perhaps in there, 4, 5, 6 hours, and you're limited to the time that you've got. So we can afford to do as many investigations as many lengthy experiments as we want to do. And it's providing some really good information.
I've found over the years, the places I can go back to over and over again, the spirits actually start working with me more, and they're more active. They're more, it's almost like they're doing me a favor by doing what I ask.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I think they get, I wouldn't say get used to you, but I think they're as they get sort of more familiar with you and you work hard, because they will see what your intentions are. They will see what you're thinking about, what you're doing. And I believe that if you've got the right intentions and you've got the right attitude towards doing it, they will reward you with activity and doing things for you.
Okay. I've noticed that just if I'm there more than, and there's some places I've got to go back over the years, 30, 40 times. They were more active the more I was there. I just assumed that they got where they trusted me. There was one who did not like me from the beginning. And someone says because they could tell, the spirits could tell by aura or something, that I'm an authority figure. I was a police officer at the time. And that's why he took a dislike to me. Do you see something like that happening?
I think so, yeah. I've seen it quite a few times. I mean, in my experience, to actually get something that's really demonic and evil and everything is really quite rare.
Mm-hmm.
But then most of the evil spirits, if you like, are generally human spirits, and human nature can be a really dark, nasty thing. You know, some of the things that people will do to each other is just awful. And that spirit, that character goes with them when, you know, when they lose this meat suit, this, you know, their vessel that they're in,
Yes.
and that spirit goes on, you know, that personality doesn't change. And
Right.
if you've got somebody that's really nasty and vile in life, they're going to be like that in death. And if they don't want to rest, and they want to, you know, punish somebody, and they want to be harmful and hurtful, then, you know, that's the sort of spirit you can end up with.
And I agree with you on that one completely. It's whatever spirit they were in life, whatever personality, they're the same person on the other side.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Okay. We talked about the thing on your, there on the bed that was doing it to you. What about jinn? Do they fall in under the same kind of thing you're thinking of with the demonics?
Well, we've been doing a bit of research and reading up, you know, on the course about the jinn, and so far I haven't seen anything bad about the jinn. They're very much depicted as fire spirits, and some of the ancients used to summon the jinn to actually do positive work, you know, to actually help and guide them. And I feel that would be very much the same as what some of our demons are like, because some of the demons that we've been working with, you know, they're one of the demons. I can't remember his name off the top of my head because we've done quite a few. But his sole mission is to make people fall in love. You know, and another one is all he's sort of there to do is to teach people about astronomy, or there's one, you know, mathematics, or about the weather, or, you know, there's elements and things like that. So a lot of them are there to just sort of try and teach us and show us knowledge. And I think that this is a similar sort of thing with the jinn. You know, some of the people in the ancient texts have been summoning the jinn to do positive things, not necessarily bad things.
There is so much there to break down what you just said. So these things that we are referring to as demons are actually here to teach, some of them?
Yeah, well, if you look in the book, the Lesser Key of Solomon, there's the 72 demons in there. These 72 demons were the demons that King Solomon was supposed to have sort of captured, and
Yes.
with his ring of power, he captured them and he made them rebuild his temple. And this is the temple that the Ark of the Covenant was kept in, and you know, as the story goes, and he used these demons to build his temple. And when you sort of look at what the context was, because the Lesser Key of Solomon is supposed to be translated from the old text, the old original sort of text, and there's not really anything in there. I haven't come across any demon so far where it tells us that they're bad and they're harmful and they're going to possess you and all that sort of thing.
Okay.
So you know, I do sort of reserve my sort of judgment on that, and it's only because of the work that I've done. You know, our opinions are really based on the knowledge and the experiences that we've had, and it has changed the way I think about demons, because I went to church when I was little, and I was confirmed, and I did all that, and sitting in a church never felt right to me. And as soon as I walked into a spiritualist church, I knew I felt I was at home. It was spirit that was my path. And so far, the only people who tell us that the demons are bad are the church. And a lot of things were demonized, you know, a long time ago, because that's what the church tells us. And, you know, really, I just wanted to make up my own mind without, you know, necessarily listening to the others.
Okay. Well, what then would be your opinion of the 1946 St. Louis exorcist case that the movie was based on, or some of those cases?
So a lot of the movies do tend to be very much exaggerated, and they they blow all I mean, things like The Conjuring with the nun and the black eyes and everything else.
Yeah, way above what was in the book.
Yeah. If you actually look up the proper demon for that, he's a little cherub boy with wings. You know, he's not an evil nun with big black eyes.
Wow. Okay. All right, Jade.
Valak. Yeah, it's Valak, isn't it? So if you look up Valak as a demon, he's a little cherub boy with little wings.
Okay, is he one of the demons that are always hurting children? I cannot remember. There was a name, something similar to that for one.
Yeah, not as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
Not as far as I'm aware.
Jane, let me set you down for just a minute because I've got to run a commercial or two, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes, okay?
Okay.
All right, be right back. Okay, this is whole new stuff for me, whole new ways of looking at things. You all know, I've always said demons are extremely rare. And most of what people call demons are just really mean humans and a lot of showbiz. Boy, looking at it from the way she's saying it, that's a whole different world. I'm going to have to look into that myself because it's an intriguing idea. And speaking of intriguing ideas, would you all check this out? And I will be back in a minute.
While most near-death experiencers return to this plane of existence with alluring tales of their time spent in the presence of the divine, what happens when one crosses the veil into the afterlife, into the void? In the new book, Dying to Meet Them, Mindy Toutfest describes her journey to the afterlife after a devastating aneurysm, how a strange turn of events would lead her to spiritual growth, divine healing, UFO experiences, and a greater understanding of the universe. Get your copy of Dying to Meet Them today at Amazon.com or visit unxmedia.com for more information on this book and more amazing selections from UnX Media Publishing at unxmedia.com.
Unlock the mysteries of the spirit realm with the new book, Meeting Wallace. In this channeled work by renowned psychic medium Larry Costa, the reader will delve into the profound wisdom of his spirit guide, Wallace. Together, they share the transformative journey of harnessing psychic powers from the celestial plane. Discover the extraordinary psychic gifts that have empowered Larry on his path and immerse yourself in a thought-provoking and awe-inspiring read. Meeting Wallace is a groundbreaking endeavor, and it is a perspective seen through the eyes of a spirit guide. Discover the wisdom of the spirit realm alongside actual photographs of ghosts and spirit guides. Get the book Meeting Wallace by Larry Costa at Amazon.com.
All right, friends, there's a lot to talk about. We will chat after the show about such things as the UnX magazine and all of that. But I want to get back to my guest, Jane Rowley. And I'm really re-looking at everything from talking with her, and I can't wait to hear where she's going to take us next. So, Jane, it is different to be looking at it from this point of view. I'm sure you've come across many people like me who's never considered demons anything but totally evil fallen angels before.
Yeah. And well, for me, it's about finding the truth. And if something sparks my interest in the paranormal, I want to do as much research as I can about it. I mean, for instance, like take the devil, right? We all think of the devil as this horned character that's sitting there with his pitchfork, in hell, waiting for us all to sort of, go there and he can punish us for eternity. But when you actually do a bit of research back into it, I've been looking more at the pagan god, things like the Green Man, the Horned God, and there's depictions on caves in France going back 30,000 years of when the men used to, sort of dress up as with the antlers on the head and that sort of thing. And this is a sort of a pagan belief, and the pagans sort of I suppose worshipped him because it was like the giving thanks to the gods of the ground and the lands for harvests and food and all that sort of thing. And this then went on, and he's depicted in various different things in Roman times and as Cernunnos, and we've got this horned god. And it was only when the sort of Christians came along with their new religion, and they actually demonized the old god to make way for the new god. And this is where we get the devil from, with these horns and we were all told that he's bad and everything else, but it isn't. I mean, the pagans still celebrate, and I'm a pagan myself, and we still celebrate this pagan god. And looking back, we've been told all these things about the devil, but does he really exist, or is it or are people just taking, like I said, the old god, one of the deities, and made him bad?
It's a good point. What would happen to us after we died then? What is your opinion on that?
Well, my belief is, and this sort of goes from a lot of experience myself, that our soul will leave the body.
Okay.
And we no longer need that, and the soul then goes off into the spirit world. And the spirit world, I believe, is all around us. It's in all these open spaces around us, in this sort of in this ether, and that's where I believe spirit is. And we then go on to, as a spirit, you then go on to perhaps another life, or you would perhaps help somebody as a spirit guide, or you would perhaps do some healing, or there's lots of different things in the spirit world that they can do. And this is then where we get like reincarnation coming in, because if you need to learn more lessons, if you need to do more, you would then be reincarnated. And I have done quite a bit of looking into reincarnation. I've gone back to 2 past lives myself, with past regression, and also I've done a lot of research into children. There's so many children that are born with memories of their previous life, but usually by the time they're 7, all those memories are gone. And there's a lot of cases where children, I think one of the universities in America has done a lot of studies on this, and they've interviewed sort of thousands or got information, data on thousands of children that have had these experiences.
I've got a book about one that it just amazes me, and it's changed my mind on it. The little boy picked out fighter planes from World War II, said he had flown it. I'm sure you've heard the story. He picked out, his mom said, look at this model of a plane, it's got bombs. And he said, no, Mom, those are DWAP tanks. He already knew what they were at 4. And then when he was 6, they took him to a reunion of the men on the ship, because he could name the ship he was on, and identified these old men by their names and families, asked them about family members. So that's a lot of, that had to change my mind quite a bit on this. Yeah,
and I've done a lot of reading up on this. There's instances where a couple have, say, had a baby, and the baby died when it was very young, and then they've had sort of 2 more children, and the 3rd child after that said that they were the spirit of that first baby that died, and they had all the memories of that first baby, and telling their parents. And there's so many instances. And I did read, I'm not sure if it's the same case or a similar case to the one that you just described, and they actually took the little boy, and I think they sat him in a cockpit, and he knew all the controls, and he was drawing these sort of cockpits and things with these crayons, and it's fascinating. And this is a question that we have to ask, at what point does this all become more than coincidence? This isn't just coincidence, is it? When there's so many experiences happening and being recorded, that there's a lot more to it than people would like us to think.
Yeah, and I believe certain churches will tell us this is all a plot by the Satan to get us off the path.
And for me, one of the big things in working in the paranormal is, if you take religion out of the paranormal and you're just working with spirit, it's a whole different ball game. If we look back to like Ed and Lorraine Warren, you know, and I know they were sort of highly respected at the time, but they were very, very religious. And a lot of their findings and a lot of the things that were happening. But if you took religion out of that scenario or out of their cases, what would actually be left?
Well, since a lot of their cases were demonic, I guess that would change the whole structure of each one.
And that's the sort of thing that I like to look at. You know, I like to challenge all of that. And, you know, I'd actually challenge all those cases and just actually say, if we took religion out of the paranormal, what would actually be there? Because what is there is, you know.
Yes, very good. You sent me a couple of pictures, and I wanted to throw them up so you could tell us the story behind them. And I guess this would be the first one.
Yeah.
So what's the story behind this?
So the other picture that I showed you is the nightlight.
Right. You want me to flip that one up?
So the picture that you can see, he's got where his hands are. That is the same light. So this light was brought into the center, this nightlight, and this lady brought it in, and she said that her grandson was having terrible sort of nightmares, and he was screaming. And as soon as they put the light on, you know, after 10 minutes, when he was in the room on his own, he would be screaming and crying, and he wouldn't stay in the bedroom, and there was all sorts of sort of problems. And the lady, knowing what sort of work we did, she actually brought that nightlight up to the center, and I sat with it for a while, and I worked with it. And every time the light went on, after probably about 10 minutes, I could see that man, and he was coming, and he was just standing around the light. Okay. And he's quite a primitive sort of man. He doesn't really speak, but he's very, he you know, it says there, he was drawn to this light, and he was sort of feeding off the energy, because it's quite a sort of blue-white light. It's not a normal sort of warm yellow light. And he was sort of, you know, pinching this boy, and he was sort of pull air, and he was really upsetting this little boy. And so I drew this picture, and I sent this picture of my drawing to Neil, who I work with, and he sent it to the grandmother, who then sent it to the mother of the little boy, and she actually showed the little boy the picture. And he said, "I don't want to see that ghost anymore, Mummy. I don't want to see it." And then he said, "Well, you know," actually he said, "I haven't actually seen that ghost for a while. So since the light was taken out of his bedroom, he never saw it." But to me, the validation of the little boy actually recognizing my drawing. Yes. I knew that we'd sort of done the right sort of work, and, you know, it did help the little boy, because obviously, and we kept the light. We've kept the light up at the center because they didn't want it back.
Do you think he is still attached to the light, or was it just because of the location and what was going on?
Well, I mean, when we're working with haunted objects, it's not necessarily that they're actually attached to the light. I mean, in this case, when the light was on, this spirit was drawn to this light, and he was just there because of that light. And he didn't, you know, he wasn't part of the house, he wasn't part of anything, but he was just a random sort of spirit just coming through, if you like, seen the light and was drawn to it. And wherever that light would be plugged in and put on it, I would think that he would be drawn to it. So when we're working with the haunted items, we've found that in a lot of cases, the spirits aren't actually attached to the item, but it was perhaps an item that they were very fond of when they were alive. It was their possession, you know, and now and again they will go back and they will spend time with it. They will, you know, be with it. So when we're working with haunted objects, even though the spirit's there, it's not sort of there all the time.
Okay. So this creature that you saw and drew, which the child confirmed, do you think that was the spirit of a primitive human, or is he was just an ugly guy in life? Okay.
No, I think it was sort of quite like a primitive human. He didn't really have the intelligence to sort of speak or write.
Okay.
And he was just drawn to it.
Are the people of your country, England, UK, more open to this than the Americans have been?
I don't think so.
No?
We do have quite a few challenges. You know, what we work in a way where we will like I say, we don't sort of really stick to any rules. We don't take any notice of what anybody tells us what we can and we can't do. So by doing this sort of work, it opens us up to many different things, thoughts and ideas of things that probably aren't generally in the paranormal. One of the things that we did, I actually astral projected into a very large sort of portal mirror to see what was on the other side. And that was an experiment that you wouldn't really sort of do anywhere else. We could only really do that sort of thing if you're in your own sort of premises, really. And some of the findings from that were really quite interesting. And I would never have thought to have that we would get the results that we did.
Could you tell us what you saw when you crossed over into the mirror dimension, I guess you'd call it?
Yeah. So the experiment was it was a Halloween experiment, and the four of us, the team. No, actually, this was the previous team. The team was we planned that we would all show up, and that one person would stay with the camera, and four of us then would astral project into the mirror. And then we would sort of spend some time there, and then we would come back, and without speaking to each other, we would then draw what we seen, what we experienced, and see if it was the same thing. But on the night, only two of us turned up. So we decided to go ahead with the experiment anyway. So Neil was on the camera, and I decided to go into the mirror. So as I sort of went toward, as I left my body and I went towards the mirror, I couldn't actually get in, and I had to go up, and I had to go and get extra protection from the angels. And I went right up, and they actually made my light much brighter. I was actually traveling as light. And I came down, and I could actually go into the mirror, and there was a long dark tunnel, and I went through the tunnel for quite a bit, and then through this black space. And then I came across this sort of group of guardians, as I would call them. And they weren't going to let me through. They told me I shouldn't be there. And I started to feel a bit out of my depth by then. And I just told them that I just wanted to see what was on the other side. And I had to have two escorts, which were two sort of black shadow sort of hooded figures that were either side of me. And they took me through, and they opened up into this massive sort of space and it all looked like pinpricks of light. And I then sort of realized that each sort of light was actually a doorway, like my mirror that I'd come through. So there was all these sort of dots of light, and they actually sort of took me down, and I went into this light, which was a doorway. And I was in the base of a pyramid, and there was Egyptian hieroglyphs around, and Anubis came out and told me that I shouldn't be there and I need to get out. But I said to him, I only want to learn. I just want to see what was here. And he just told me that there was a lot to learn, to stay on the path, but to get out of here. And I then was escorted back, and I was gone for about 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. I went back through the mirror, went back up. They reduced my light, and I then went back, and I was gone for about 30 minutes. I've written this up. I do actually write for the Haunted magazine as well in the UK, and I think you can get the Haunted magazine in the US as well. So I do try and record all these things and write all these things down. And it was just an amazing experience for me, because it opened up so many more questions. If each one of these doorways was a portal, could I actually travel back in time? If I went through a doorway that was in a different timeline, then what? Then, how does that work? Or, there's so many questions.
That is intriguing. So you weren't allowed to know what's on the other side. Would that, the angels stopped you?
They stopped me going through. They added to my protection, which made my light brighter. I was traveling as light.
Okay.
And for that, then that also opened up another load of questions. Was I an orb? Was I traveling like an orb? Which I believe I was. And it's just opened up so many questions. I need to go back. It's been my experience that I can
get a spirit to talk. I use dowsing rods myself, and they will answer questions. They're really informative. Many of them really do want the attention until I ask about what's on the other side of death. And then they stop talking. Do you think we're maybe not allowed to know what's on the other side?
I think it's down to us to try and find out as much as we can. I feel I've got a pretty good idea,
Okay.
but I'm not sure if everybody's ready for it yet. I mean, yeah, I can have conversations with people and they'll just say, "Well, what a load of bloody rubbish," or you can speak to people that are really interested in it. But it's my intention to keep on going with this. My sister passed away last year. She was only 49.
I'm sorry.
She had pancreatic cancer, and I sat with her, and watching sort of her experience and seeing, I did see like a cone of light near to her. I could see the 4 relatives, and I knew who the relatives were who had come to escort her, if you like.
Okay.
And that was another quite valuable experience for me, because she did say to me, learn all you can. When I die, learn all you can from it. And because she knew, she knew what was going to happen. And that was one of the most valuable experiences for me, because I could see, because I could see the spirit, I could see the 4 relatives there. I could see the cone of light that had developed sort of near the end of a bed. I could see her scrambling, trying to get to this light for quite a few hours before. And it was just, even though she couldn't even talk or anything by that time, but she wanted to get into this light. And it was just such a valuable experience that unless you're actually in that position and you can do that, you probably wouldn't know what was happening.
You've brought up a lot of things that I had never considered before. What is your opinion on the shadow people?
I have worked with shadow people before. I feel that is just the way that a spirit manifests itself. And I believe that when spirit tries to show themselves to us, I think there's lots of different ways that they can do that. And I think it's down to perhaps their energy or their intention for us to see them, or just the different things in the environment or whatever. If they want to come through as an orb, they will. If they want to come through as a black shadow and that's all they can manifest, just the outline with just a black shadow, then that's what they do. You then may get a full-bodied apparition. I think there's lots of different ways that spirit can manifest, and I think we need to sort of treat all of them sort of with the same sort of respect, because in some cases, some spirits might only be able to just manage a little bit of communication, or just showing that they're there, whereas others can probably, work the Ouija board, move things, do things. And it's just all on an individual thing, I think. But shadow people, my experience is they're just the same as, if you like, ghosts or spirits that have just manifested in the way that they've preferred or the way that they can.
Okay. Jane, talking to you has been so enlightening. I mean, it's a whole different way of looking at things, and it's going to take me a while to get my mind wrapped around it. But it's been very interesting to hear your opinions and your theories. It's been great.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's been a real pleasure to come along and just share some of these things with you.
I'm glad you did. Now, you said there's a network or a video channel that people can see from you guys, you and your people?
Yeah, it's called Ghost Planet Network. It's on Roku. It is available in America. It's on most devices as well. And there's also the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Center that you can look up. There's lots of things going on there. And, if anybody does ever have any sort of ideas for any weird and wonderful experiments, we're always up for that. So you can always send us some information.
Well, I got to tell the folks, you did send an amazing video. And I'm going to, if you can get it to me again with an MP3 or MP4, I'll try and get it on here just in case we can get it on. What are we going to be looking at?
So this was taken in an investigation that we were doing. It was around February time. It was in an old house. Because of the time of year, it was absolutely freezing, and it was about 11, 12 o'clock at night. So the room is absolutely freezing. So we're using a thermal camera for this. And I was in the room, and I could see this man walking around. So I actually drew him in one of my drawings.
Right.
And we went to the back of the room to do some work with the voodoo doll that he got. But this man was sort of still there. And because one of the things I try and do if I'm connected with spirits, ask them how they want to communicate with us. And a lot of time they will either come back and say dowsing rods or Ouija board, but this particular guy, he said, get the flare. And I just instantly said to one of the girls, get the flare. And she got the flare camera and switched it on. And as soon as she switched it on, we seen this face in the camera. Now the camera is panning round, but his face is still in the camera, and his face is blue. We call this video "Blue Face" because it's obvious, but his face is blue, and it's like a dark blue. And considering the outside temperature around him is really, really cold, but his face is absolutely blue in this thermal camera. So, and it's like in the camera, and I've sent this video off to quite a lot of people who have who say they're experts in thermal cameras and things like that. And people just can't explain it because we just can't seem to. People just can't explain it, and this is one of the best bits of evidence really that we've captured.
Okay. Well, I hope we can get it on here and we can take a look at it. But Jane, again, thanks for coming on. You have really opened up a whole new world with me here on this.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really good. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm glad you could make it. And would you hold on for just a second while I say goodbye to the good folks, and then I want to chat with you just a little more.
Okay.
All right. Be right back. Again, going to have to wrap my mind around this because there's some whole new ways of looking at things. You know, when we started this and I had my belief that ghosts were ghosts, aliens, cryptids, they were all different. And then talking to these folks, I started seeing that they all combine, they all merge somehow. Skinwalker Ranch, the Marley Woods, the Mothman incident. They all seem to come in together, including Men in Black and all that. Now it's time for me to open up even more and take into account some of the things that Jane was talking about, like demons aren't really evil, or at least some of them aren't. Boy, this is going to take some time, but it's a journey I'm enjoying, and it's a journey I hope you folks will join with me. Hey, I do want to remind you about joining the UNX network. You can go to unxnetwork.com, you type in your email address and whatever, and you are a member. And with that, you get, of course, the magazine that comes out monthly. I've got articles. The first one you see, the dark blue one, I had 2 articles in that one about the battleship North Carolina, and another one just about the legends of Halloween. And when I'm talking legends, I'm talking razor blades in the apples, poison in the candy, cults trying to kidnap blonde-haired, blue-eyed children for I don't know, whatever they're supposed to be doing with them. Just things that had a very tiny little seed of accuracy in them, but was blown so far out of proportion. Recently, I've done articles on vampires in New Orleans, some of the haunted places I've been in, things I've done. Government conspiracies, which, boy, that's a fun topic. So anyway, once you become a member, that comes mailed to you, emailed to you once a month from some of the best writers around. And plus you get access to the blog. And let me tell you guys, the blog's been burning up lately with these cube-shaped UFOs being seen, Mothman seen over the Mississippi River, government, the Tic Tacs, all this stuff going on, a lot of it, and it's all free to get in on it. Plus, you get the newsletter. So there's no reason not to join up. It's free. You can pay for more of a membership, but just this will really get you started in whatever it is you're interested in. We've had issues on cryptids, aliens, exorcisms, witches, everything. Whatever you're interested in, you'll find it in the Onyx magazine. So please join up. It's free. And I guess that's about it for me for this week. So thank you all for coming. I want to thank Jane for being here and totally blowing my mind because, again, all new topics, all new ways to look at things. You think I was just starting to figure things out, and she sent me off on another trip. So I want to thank her for coming on because I do love this adventure, and I love having you folks with me. So y'all stay cool. It's getting cold where I'm at now, so try and stay warm. And I think most important of all is stay spooked. Good night.